The Boeing 737 MAX hasn't exactly had the best start for a new aircraft.
Seen from an Alaska Airlines flight forced to make an emergency landing. The plane suddenly lost a section of its fuselage mid-flight.
Found loose bolts during an inspection of its fleet of Boeing 737 MAX 9.
The company has to rework about 50 planes after a new issue was found during the production of 737 MAX jets.
It's a huge shame that Boeing, a company that millions of people put their trust into every day flying aboard their aircraft, had reportedly cut corners, which has sadly led to the loss of life in some cases. Now, the hugely popular and incredibly safe 737 next generation aircraft have been in flight simulators for the past 2 decades. However, with the MAX being released towards the end of the 2010s, we're limited on the options in the simulator. However, a newcomer to the flight sim community, Bredok3D, brought us an aircraft just over 2 years ago now, seemingly bringing this new plane into our simulators for the price of around $20. And that's what we're going to review in today's video. On the off chance that you've watched our channel before, you'll know that these videos usually include a first impressions, where I take the add-on for a spin live on camera. Now, to be transparent, this isn't actually my first stab at a review of this plane. In fact, if we turn the time back, before myself and a colleague created the Flight Sim Hub, I tried to make a review of the plane and post it on my dormant YouTube channel at the time. I've watched the video back, and at that time the PMDG 737 hadn't actually been released. But my primary point was, at that point, you could purchase X-Plane 11 on Steam and install a free Zebo 737 mod and still have a better 737 than what the $20 737 MAX was, and you'd also get a full-on simulator alongside it. To be fair, this is still a valid point, but now the PMDG 737 is out and the Dash 600 is priced at just $30, there really is just one use case for this add-on, and that's if you genuinely need a 737 MAX in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So the add-on is around 1GB in size, is available on both PC and Xbox, meaning at this stage it's your only option for a 737 if you do play on Xbox. It comes with 14 liveries: the Boeing livery, American Airlines, Lufthansa, Ryanair, British Airways, Delta, KLM, Norwegian, Southwest, USAF, Varig, ANA and EasyJet. I'll get the bad bits out of the way first. It seems to be using systems from the Azobo 787 and A320 in the cockpit, and a lot of the custom textures are quite low quality. From a distance, the overhead panel doesn't look so bad, but up close you can see the slightly blurred text. The part that puts me off the most about the cockpit though is the MCP. I'm pretty sure it's the font here that's being used that makes it come out this way, but it just does not look as it should. The outside model is pretty nice, but sadly the plane's gear seems to be from the A320. Apart from that though, I don't think it's a terrible job. Whilst we're on the bad points, I'll raise something that takes away from my experience at least, and that's the oral warning systems on board, or rather the lack of oral warning systems on board. Take the PMDG 737 on a joyride and you'll be blasted with
100, pull up, radio altimeter, wind shear, wind shear, wind shear.
Now I don't know how the licensing works with sim add-ons, so I'm not sure why these alerts were not added. I know some people are probably thinking, why am I comparing a study level aircraft that's been around for decades with an add-on that doesn't claim to be study level? And the reasoning for this is just the current price of the PMDG 600. It's hard not to raise points such as missing systems and low quality textures when for the price of a McDonald's you could just have all of them. Now it's been a good while since I last flew this add-on, so now I'm going to cut to the first time back in this aircraft for an honest review. And in this case, I've been using the PMDG 737 as my primary aircraft for flights in the sim, so I'm hoping to have some good insight on the differences. After that, we'll get onto some positives about this add-on and the actual developer. Okay, yeah, here we go. So, yeah, not the best weather in the UK at the time of recording this particular video. But yeah, I have to say, sat at this, I was going to say remote stand, but it looks more like next to the maintenance hangar at East Midlands, where, to be fair, I believe a lot of aircraft come here to get their liveries applied. I know that Jet2 uses them for their new A321 Neo aircraft they have. And just like I said at the beginning of this video, I think that the outer model, especially from this distance, looks great. It's showing about the wheels, but yeah, the engines, even the tail. I think the reg is in the slightly wrong location on this particular livery, but yeah, it doesn't look a terrible job at all. Obviously, bar the wheels, which I'm nearly 100% certain are from the A320. I'm going to have to compare them side by side. But what we'll do is we'll hit fly, and I believe the aircraft should be in a fully cold and dark state. And so I made my way through the setup of the plane. The only issues I really saw was the overhead panel not being quite right and some of the click switches been a little bit fiddly. But I did manage to get the plane started up, and there are checklists built into the simulator for this particular aircraft, although they are the exact same as the A320neo as far as I can tell. After getting in the way of this jet to 737-800 and then going to the wrong runway, I was finally ready for a full power departure out of East Midlands in the 737 MAX. Whoa, what happened there? Issue with the steering. Okay, so confirm runway 09 East Midlands, we are cleared and ready to depart. As I say, other than the auto throttle, I'm going to fly this aircraft very manually, so we'll have a listen to the engines. We'll go full power. As you might be able to hear, the sound seems to be from the Azobo 747-8i. We are accelerating very quickly with full engine thrust.
V1.
Straight into the air, well before VR. Lovely. Positive brake, gear up. After enabling LNAV for my flight directors and eventually VNAV, I began my ascent all the way up to flight level 280 for this short flight. Okay guys, so we've just reached around 7,000 feet. I've just levelled off briefly there whilst we make our turn to get back on course. I'll be honest, I didn't enable LNAV during the takeoff roll. I was totally oblivious. So yeah, I was a bit confused why the flight directors weren't updating, but it's because I didn't have the LNAV path selected. I've been hand flying the aircraft now since takeoff, just passing 8,000 feet just about. And it doesn't feel like the PMDG, but to be honest, I could definitely get by with it. There's nothing gone madly wrong. It hasn't run away with me or anything like some freeware aircraft can do. It was a rapid takeoff, probably because of I'd imagine it was low weight distribution and the fact we could just complete full power rather than just our takeoff thrust. The sounds aren't too bad, but I'm pretty certain they're from the 747. I have to go and check. Passing 10,000 feet there, and I'll tell you what, we'll continue the climb, and we'll configure the autopilot in just a second, just so I can get a little bit of footage. But yeah, overall, it's not too bad. And to be fair, just flying the aircraft, I'm in the immersion of a 737 MAX. It's just a bit of a shame about some of these displays, like just the sort of sizing of them. They've obviously been increased in size, and it just looks maybe a little bit comical. But we're around 11,000 feet now. We'll continue the climb. During my testing of the VNAV, the climb and descent rate were fairly optimistic for a 737, and I've seen some others mention similar issues. For a casual flight though, I'd see no issue with this, and the vertical speed modes work fine as well, albeit with a slight caveat which we'll get onto later on. We are still rocking it up on VNAV at 4,000 feet a minute. If I have a look here, I don't believe there is any form of cabin. Yeah, you can see that it's just an empty shell. That's fair enough. Again, for that price, you can't really complain. So fairly shortly, we are going to start a gradual descent into Gatwick. I haven't bothered opening up Navigraph charts for this. It's just a casual flight, which, to be honest, I think is exactly what this aircraft was designed for. So yeah, we're not going to use the VNAV or anything. Some of it's in there, but it'd be a crazy descent. So, as I said, the vertical speed, I can't get that to work. So if I come here and I say let's descend to 110, like this, and I say okay, vertical speed mode, and we will begin our descent. You can see that it's working here, but I've no vertical speed here. The VNAV comes up, but the vertical speed doesn't, and the button just says it's switched off, but it evidently is switched on. That's the speed. We'll come out of there and we will select. We're going to get rid of that heads-up display for the time being, although to be fair, it does add to the immersion. It's definitely a nice feature that they've added in. And we will begin our descent. Whilst we're at it, I'm just going to sit down. I don't know how they've got away with that, not put the sound in. It's even in the default aircraft. But anyway. So I now have the altitude part here. Oh, the altitude holds on, but the vertical speed's come back now. I've been stopping and starting the recording because we've been in flight for about an hour, including on the ground and getting set up. So, but the smaller issues do crop up. For someone casual, especially if they're just using if they use VNav or even if they're just using the vertical speed mode, it's not so bad. I'm not entirely sure what's happened to the path. It's like it's going straight for Gatwick. Runway 26 left. Okay, that's not good. Why did that happen? There was a perfect path there. Ah, that's 26 left. Golf. Yeah. Can we get that back on path then? Making this left turn like it should do. So as you can see here, during what seemed to be the final stage of the approach, the aircraft totally lost its navigation path. Now, reconfirming the star in the FMC and the ILS for runway 26 left seemed to fix the issue, but checking the VFR map showed the aircraft was way off course. I'm wondering if this is some kind of error I've made in the FMC, but the aircraft flew the rest of the flight perfectly. Sadly, the worsening weather at Gatwick made it a bit difficult to actually get onto the approach, and I had to somewhat manually fly it using the VFR map, which really did take away from the immersion here. Approach mode also failed to capture the localizer and the glide slope correctly in this flight, although it has worked fine in the past. I don't want to knock the aircraft too much, just in case I made some kind of mistake along the way, but skimming through the footage, I can't think what would cause all this bizarre behaviour. Okay, so the positives are as follows. It's the only 737 MAX for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. It's the only option for a 737 full stop if you use a simulator on an Xbox. The exterior model looks okay for the price. It's pretty good for beginners who want to use the Flight Simulator 2020 Flight Planner. And the developer seems to be fairly honest about the aircraft in their description of the product. Some of the negatives are the plane's got some funky behaviour in navigation during my initial testing. A lot of the textures are borrowed from the default 787, 747 and A320. Some textures are low resolution or missing, and the aircraft is missing some key systems, for example the aural warning system for terrain, bank, etc. So, do we recommend this aircraft? Well, the answer is no in almost every case. If you're a PC player, just go for the PMDG 737. If you're concerned about the level of realism, you've got the ability to configure the aircraft really easily using panel states in the FMC, and a subscription to SimBrief will give you flight plan files which tend to do a better job than the MSFS 2020 planner anyway. And the point from my original video is still somewhat valid. You could buy X-Plane 11 and get the Zebo mod. Granted, this is an 800, not a Max, but you still get a full flight simulator alongside getting a 737. So, if you have an Xbox or you have a need for a Max, go for it, but if not, the PMDG 600 is priced at just $10 more. Or go crazy and check out an older version of X-Plane for the price. So ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed our review of the 737 MAX, and this is actually the longest video we've ever made, so if you did enjoy it and want to see more, make sure to leave a like and a comment below, and we'll see you in the next one.